Towns in America have been a staple since when it turned into a nation. There were thousands of towns in every state, each with its own unique people and values. It became part of America's identity as anyone could move west in search of cheap land for a new life. It was the most unique part of being an American that no one else in the world had. But in the modern day, it had become a different story. Today, small towns are no longer the proud identity of American culture, but the forgotten, hidden part of society. Every metric shows that small towns have been declining for a long time. Unemployment, crime rate, drug use, teen pregnancies, divorce, and death have increased nonstop over the years. Even though we are celebrating economic prosperity and growth in our urban cities, rural America has been left in the dust.
My name is Rashad Johnson and I come from Claywater, Texas. The sign says 6,000, but it's 3,000. A lot of people live on the outskirts of the town. Claywater, Texas does not have a Six Flags. I'll describe this town as boring. You will see the same thing every day in this town. It's one long strip. You have the same festivals every year, the same annual festivals, and nothing really different. This town is poor. It's poor because there is nothing going on with the town. Like I said, you do the same thing, and not a lot of people are coming into the town. A lot of people, certain people stay, like I said at the beginning, but not people. A lot of people even are putting money into the town. You would come back, but those are kind of like the bums. You know, you go to college, you fell out of college, and then you come back to Claywater, and those are the people sitting next to the gas stations and stuff like that. We talk about, back in my day, I used to be yada, yada, yada. There is not a lot of crime, but there is a gang. When I was younger, there was a gang called 300, and nothing really big. The really big gang was in Longview, but this is kind of like a branch off the gang, but nothing to worry about. I stayed out of the gang activity by, I played a lot of sports, football, baseball, I was in powerlifting, and I was in the National Honor Society. I used to go and help with the special ed kids. I did a lot of stuff in school, and that's why I'm here and not still in town. In Claywater, you know what everybody's doing. There's nothing that's a secret. It'll get around the whole town. Parents, everyone knows. I got a $40,000 scholarship, and everybody knows in the whole town. It'll be put on Facebook, all types of social media. People talk around the town, and it goes by really fast. There's nothing that you will not know in this town. In Claywater, we have a person named Dalen Mack. He got a scholarship to Texas A&M. He played for 4 years, and then now he's at the Baltimore Ravens. And because he didn't bring cinnamon rolls for the offensive linemen, they filled his car full of packing peanuts. I believe the city is maintaining. It's not moving up, and it's not really going down. It's maintaining, keeping a calm level. I would rebuild Claywater from the ground up. I would try to bring in new people, new tourist attractions, something that would attract people, all different cultures, diversities, so we can thrive now, because right now it's maintaining and it's not really thriving.
This has not been a trend that has been going on for a long time, but has only become a serious issue for several years. During the 80s and 90s, the inner city was considered the hotspot of poverty and crime. Many city blocks were a crowded area full of drugs and violence, creating what was called the urban crisis. Today, many of those areas disappeared due to the economic boom in nearly every city and gentrification. However, poverty in the U.S. did not disappear entirely. It just moved somewhere else.
The town I come from is called Claywater, Texas. The population of the town is around 6,636. The west side of the town is poor. In the west side of my town, there's a lot of drugs and drug dealing and a whole bunch of gang stuff, or a little bit more violence than the rest of the town. I mean, there's not a lot of places to work where I'm from. There's a few restaurants, some fast food places, a car place, and a school. The kids in my town are very outspoken. And one kid offended another kid, and so he went and he found him, and he had a knife and a baseball bat. So he tried to kill him, and he was like beating him with the bat, and I think he stabbed him a few times. But he's still alive. Not everybody knows everybody, but gossip spreads like wildfire. For example, one of the bus drivers had a heart attack, and by like the afternoon everybody knew, and he died while he was driving. One of the major things that happened was at the end of my junior year, one of my classmates hung herself. I guess one of the biggest businesses in Sealy is like a watermelon business, because they take the seats and the windows and like the back door off of school buses, and they use them to transport watermelons. Probably the only way that people would know about our struggles is through word of mouth. If I could change one thing in the town, I would put in a movie theater so that we don't have to drive 30 minutes just to go see a movie.
So how did this happen? Why did the collapse happen so fast? What first started it was the factories that gave many people employment moved overseas. With that, many businesses that outsourced to small towns decided to leave the nation altogether for cheap labor. The next problem is most of the young talent never decided to stay where they grew up for work. This makes most skilled students go on to universities then never come back. But who can blame them? They are not going to find any good work with their college degrees anymore.
My name is Jae Carrizales, and I'm from Hudson, Texas. I lived there for about 12 years. The population of Hudson is about 5,000. If people stay in Hudson, they want to stay with their family. They will only stay for their family, or if they have a good job in Lufkin. There's not anything else keeping anyone there. A lot of the kids who grew up in Hudson don't want to stay because it is a small town and there's no companies or anything that will offer a good job in Hudson. So they'll move to Lufkin, Nacogdoches, or even Dallas or Houston. This town isn't a very charming town. It's not one of those small or beautiful little towns that people always want to go to. It's just schools and a gas station. I think the people of this town aren't happy per se, but they feign it at best to just keep going. There's not much to be happy about, I guess. There's one school district, but there's 3 campuses. For instance, the high school and the middle school are on the same campus, but the primary school is on a different campus and the elementary school is on a different campus. I wouldn't say that Hudson is thriving or dying. It's really trying, but it takes so long for it to actually get anything done. Like, they've had plans for this gas station they've been building since I was in about 7th grade, and they just finished it last year. The thing about Hudson is, if you go to the school, you know everyone at the schools, but I wouldn't say most of the adults know each other, but as for people actually like talking to each other or knowing each other, it's very selective, and only certain families will actually hang out with each other and enjoy each other's company. I try and stay away from anything that will cause me harm, and I don't like walking at night, so there's no way that I could get into anything bad. If I told a person that I was from Hudson, Texas, they would ask, where is that, and if that's a real place. Unless they come from Lufkin, because then they know where Hudson is. So I would always tell people it's right outside of Lufkin. It's 5 square miles. If I could change Hudson in one way, I think I would try and make the roads like it within the small neighborhoods better, because there's so many potholes and people just kind of mess up their cars.
How do we bring small towns back to their former glory? Small towns still thrive, especially in the north, while southern towns struggle more. The answer to this is quite complicated and almost impossible to achieve. Many politicians campaign to bring jobs and factories back to the U.S., but with labor costs overseas being so low, it's hard to find an incentive to bring them back. Others have the idea of welfare and government incentives to help small businesses flourish again. The rising cost of housing and living in big cities might want to make people move to rural areas where they can live cheaper. Millennials are deciding to move to small towns to start a family and avoid higher cost of living. Some are able to find work through the internet, being able to work from anywhere.
Next to no business in Hudson.
My town, they don't come back. Teenagers leave because they don't like how it is in my town.
It's kind of like a double-edged sword, you know. If you're at the top of the food chain, you stay, and if not, you just leave.
It's a shame what it was a cultural identity in the U.S. is now a stain that can't be washed away. There seems to be a little hope for small-town Americans. All we can do is not forget them when they need our help. Remember, every time the news celebrates the economy growing and standard of living rising, know that the opposite is happening in a dead town very close to you.